All right, with no further ado, I would like to introduce to you Elizabeth Nouvelle. She is the Financial Aid Advisor and Recruitment Coordinator for the University of Nevada, Reno, and she has prepared an amazing presentation for you tonight. It's all yours.
Thank you so much, Maria. Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, as mentioned, and I am with the University of Nevada, Reno. And so today I'm going to be presenting on just kind of college admissions in general. So this is going to be not specific necessarily to the University of Nevada, Reno. This is more so going to be specific to just college in general. So when you're starting this college application process, as you're looking as parents, you're looking for your students on how to prepare and what to prepare for. First and foremost, I just want to make sure, maybe a thumbs up if anyone can see my presentation. If there's any issues, just post that in the chat. I want to make sure to also give sufficient time to answer any of your questions. So I will be going over everything, but while I'm presenting, feel free to post your questions in the chat box and I'll be answering them as I go along. And then I will also leave time at the end for your questions as well. So again, please feel free to ask any questions. I am an admissions counselor and a financial aid advisor with the University of Nevada, Reno. I'm actually a graduate of the university as well. I have 2 undergraduate degrees, one in criminal justice and one in psychology with a minor in speech communication. And I also have my executive master's in business administration. I'm actually from Las Vegas and then I moved up here for school. But now I love living up in Reno. And as far as admissions go, how the university handles admissions is we have recruiters assigned to every single high school. So the specific high schools that I cover are Spanish Springs, Galena, Wooster, and Coral Academy. So if any of your students attend any of these schools, I am their admissions counselor. So diving into the presentation tonight. Here we go. So kind of starting with the college admission process. I always say it is definitely a process for our students. Figuring out where they want to attend, what school is the best fit for them, figuring out how to apply, how to get the most financial aid, how to even get admitted to the university. So really when we're talking about that process, I always we're going to start looking, and we're going to go over a lot of this information that's mentioned here in this slide, but finding a college that fits, how to get that information from the colleges, different college entrance exams, completing applications, visiting campus, and then comparing our institutions. It's not as simple as just deciding this is where I'm going and that's that. For many students, for some students, maybe it is that simple. Maybe they know I'm attending the University of Nevada, Reno, and that's that. Myself, I was that student. I only applied to the university, but that typically is not the case. Sorry, I talk very fast, so I'm going to try to slow down a bit for our interpretation. So more or less, we just want to make sure that we cover all the basics when figuring out where we want to attend. So next, we're going to be looking at how to find a college that fits your student. I always tell students that it's important to know yourself. What are you looking for? What is your ultimate goal when you are going to be attending college? Why are you attending college? What are some things that you like and you dislike for certain careers or, the institution you want to attend? What abilities do you have that you want to be reflected in college or that you can put on your application for whatever college you're planning to attend? And then the resources that are available to you. And then there are other considerations to make when deciding which university you want to attend. And some things might be important to some students and some things might not be important to other students. It totally is dependent on the student. But maybe looking at the size of the institution. Does your student want to attend a large college? Do they want to attend a small private institution? Maybe something right in the middle. What type of school are they looking at? A private, a state public, a small liberal arts college, a community college? What is the environment they want? Location. Where does your child want to go to school? I often talk to students who say, I want to go to the beach. They want to be at a school by the ocean. So narrowing it down that way. Maybe they want a small college town. Maybe they want a big city. Maybe location doesn't really matter to them. Location is often one where I think it seems really important, but a lot of it comes down to the atmosphere within the individual college itself, because a college sometimes is like a little city. I mean, we're all from Reno, local. You know that the university almost feels like an independent city as part of within the city of Reno. And then affordability. This is one of those factors that a lot of students up front tend to not think about. You know, they start to look, oh, I want to go to a college, we'll just say by the beach or in the Northwest. I want this kind of environment, these kind of programs. But then they forget to think about how much is that college going to cost me and my family? So thinking about how much can they expect to have for school, having realistic conversations, parents with your students, letting them know we have a 529 plan for you, or we have prepaid tuition for the state. We have a college savings plan, or being frank and saying we don't have any savings for college. You have to find a way to pay, which is a very common conversation we have in the financial aid office. And then, of course, the programs and degrees that the student might be looking for. Is there a specific program that your child is looking for? Do they want to go pre-med? Well, they need to make sure that they find a school that offers pre-med science options. Are they looking to go into something maybe in the tech field, an ultrasound technician or an auto mechanic? Then they would have to look at, community college or tech programs for that. So making sure to find colleges and universities and different programs that are the right fit for them. And then sometimes students might look at things like university accolades. What sets this university apart from all the 4,000 different colleges and universities that we have in our country? Maybe they want one that's higher ranked than another. They're looking for smaller classes, things like that. So how I've kind of formatted our presentation is, while we are talking about college in general, whenever I talk about examples, I'm just going to talk about the University of Nevada, Reno, because that's the university, in our backyard. So I'm sure a lot of you want information about that. But it's also obviously the university that I work for. So what I mean, kind of diving into university accolades and things your children might be looking at. Maybe it's the research classification. So at the university, we are a very high R1 research institution, which is the highest you can be for research. Research is a very important part of their college experience to help when they're looking at master's programs or medical school or vet school, dental school, etc. So maybe they want a university that has a large research focus. A tier 1 institution. So we are a tier 1 university, means they rank in the top 200 or the top 5% of schools in the country. So these are going to be your most academically competitive schools, and I'd say a very well-rounded school search. The university happens to also be a tier 1 institution. A national merit sponsored institution. If your child ends up becoming a national merit finalist based off of their PSAT, which we'll talk about a little later on, they're probably looking for a school that supports national merit finalists. So that way they can offer those big scholarships to them. And then it also goes to show the students that your students are sharing the classroom with, these high achieving students. The kind of campus life and what their campus actually looks like. If any of you have at least driven by the campus in the last couple of years, you can see how much we've grown. We've opened up almost a brand new building every single year since about 2007. So more than $850 million in new construction, our most recent building being our Pennington Engineering Building. Not every campus has that consistent growth. Maybe they're, again, looking for a smaller school. Maybe they want one that just has very old historic buildings. So we have that historic sense, but also with the new combination. But looking for growth on a college campus. Looking at the average incoming freshman GPA is important. Are they a student that they think the university that they're looking at would consider? Maybe they have a 2.9 and the average freshman GPA is a 3.95. That doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to get in, but it's important for them to know what type of student is getting into that university. And then student to faculty ratio is another thing that I think a lot of students might weigh a lot more heavily than they think. So the amount of professors they have to the amount of students. if they want those smaller class sizes. So at our university, we have a 16.5-to-1 student to faculty ratio. So you do get a lot of those smaller classes, but then you also have a lot of those large lecture classes. So maybe there's 200 students in the class, but then we try to break it down where we have smaller discussions. So those are some of the items that a student might be using to consider which institution they ultimately want to attend. So where to go about finding college information? The number one place you want to look, I would say, is going directly to the source. So going to those college websites. Every single college and university has a website. On the website, you can find information about majors, about admissions, about financial aid, about scholarships. It's also where you can find contact information. So how to get in touch with the school. Every school has a prospective student's office or an admissions office. So you can call and ask these kinds of questions to them, get in touch with the school. You know, as a university, like I mentioned, I visit specific high schools. Many schools do that, especially our local schools, but even beyond. Your high school, college, and career center. So make sure to take advantage of this. Go to the career center that you have at your high school, assuming you have one, and ask those college and career center representatives. Every career center rep that I've worked with is phenomenal, and they have a wealth of information, not only about your local schools, which I think is what students often think, but about out-of-state schools and how that entire application process works. I know some of my career center reps have helped students apply to international schools. So take advantage of having those representatives in your schools. Like I said, they are a wealth of information. And then the Washoe County website has a lot of really great information. If you just go to washoeschools.net, if you go to the page for this event, the Parent University, there's an incredible amount of information about our local colleges, about different requirements, about how to get in touch, even how to find actually those college and career center representatives. There's some financial aid information. So look at the resources that are available to you. One thing I will continue to talk about throughout this presentation is the opportunity of taking college tours. I am a huge believer in checking out colleges and universities. If your students are, especially if they're freshman, sophomore, junior, take advantage. If you're ever going on any kind of family trip, maybe you're going to, visit relatives on the East Coast, take some college tours there. I find that it's so helpful to see the kind of environment that you will be potentially attending, because you sometimes don't know until you're there. My family did that various times to, go see our family, and we would go check out a college campus. And I found it really helpful as a student. As mentioned, I'm from Las Vegas, and I took a tour of the university. We have a program called Nevada Bound, which is a day-long campus visit program. You can drive in or you can fly up. And I wasn't sure about the university. And I did this tour. And by the end of the day, it was the only school I applied for, because I knew it was the right fit for me. And I tell this to all my local students as well. Go take a tour of the university, take a tour of TMCC. See the schools that are in your backyard, because I know we often think, oh yeah, I've driven by, I've been there. I went to a football game. I took a tour with Upward Bound when I was in 8th grade. When you're actually doing your college search, it's so very important to see the schools that you're thinking of attending. And I see Maria, she posted that information about where to find the Washoe Schools page as well. So I highly recommend, if possible, to go visit as many schools as you can. And I'm going to keep trying to slow down. And then college search sites. So there are a lot of great websites you can use to compare colleges. So you can put in the things that you're looking for. So maybe it's certain sizes. Again, those accolades that we mentioned, student to faculty ratio, classifications, specific programs, and you can search a database and it will kind of let you know what schools might be a good fit. So like US World and News Report is a big one. Forbes has a big one as well. So there's a lot of great college search sites that can give recommendations of schools to consider. Okay, so now talking about applications. So when applying to college, it's not as simple as, previously filling out a piece of paper and that would be your application. Now, essentially everything is online. So filling out an application for a college that you want to go to and submitting it. It's not as simple as that. There are several different types of college applications that are available, as you can see on the screen. So a college-specific application is one that is available essentially on a college's website. So for example, at the university, we have our own application that students complete. We're not a part of an application pool. The common application is one application that you complete and it's accepted by over 900 colleges. You do want to see if there's school-specific information that's needed on top of that as well. There's a coalition application. So this is kind of a smaller scale, but very similar to the Common App, and it has less colleges on there, about 200. A lot of them are smaller schools. Some of them are Ivy Leagues. You're not really going to see your big universities on there. The universal application is, again, a little similar, but it's under 50 colleges, some of which are Ivy League. These are very helpful because it's one application you submit and then send to any of those schools. Some schools are not part of this. Like, as an example, we are not, because we just don't need all the information that is being requested. Ours is very simple, where that one has typically essays and data loads and things like that. Then there's the Common Black College application, which is similar to the Common App, but that one will go for the 65 historically Black colleges and universities across the country. So it's one application and you choose which of those schools you want to send to. And then the system shared application. So some university systems allow students to submit a single application and be considered for any school in the system. So I think some schools in like Arizona do that, maybe like in like some areas in New York. So it's like one application that applies to all of them. One thing I really want to note about this, and this is kind of really for those specialized, the Common App, Coalition, Universal, and the CBCA, is you are not automatically applying to all of these schools. When you fill out the Common App, it's not submitting to 900 different colleges. You choose the ones that you want it sent to. And this is important because every college application comes with costs. So it's, some schools might offer you a waiver to apply. They might offer you a discount to apply. They might, just cover the fee. But typically you need to pay for a college application, anywhere from $40 to maybe up to $90. So you're not going to want to apply to 900 colleges because that will cost you a lot of money. So you want to make sure that, again, we talked previously about narrowing down our college search. So students want to know which colleges they apply to. You don't typically just want to apply. Maybe your student wants to do that, but it comes at a cost. And then layering the type of applications, there are various types of admission. So an early decision, and I always say check with the college or university if the terminology they use is the same. But traditionally, these are the terms. Early decision means that often that is binding. So you're only typically allowed to apply to one college or university early decision. And if you get in through early decision, it means you are going to that college. You're signing a contract that is the school you will be attending. You can apply to other schools, but you cannot apply via early decision. So you can only do one early decision. I know like a lot of large universities have this, a lot of our privates, a lot of Ivy Leagues. Like I know I have a student who is going trying to apply early decision to Stanford. So he had to check with me, can I still apply to the university? Because I want to do early decision to Stanford. Yes, you can still apply to other schools, but only can do one early decision. Early action is where schools might have an earlier date than their typical priority date. And if you apply by that date, it kind of is like what it says. It gives you the option to do other actions. So to complete additional scholarship applications, priority consideration for housing, registration, etc. So early action is a great date to mark because it's typically a good time to think about getting those applications in by. Well, it might not be a firm deadline. The early action will give them an advantage without being binding. Rolling admission, and we have an early action program, which I'll use as an example on the next slide. Rolling admission are universities that you apply and then maybe a month later, they let you know you're admitted. And if they were to apply in December, a couple weeks later, they let you know. So there's not a specific date that they notify students, you're admitted. It's a rolling. So as they process applications, they're notifying students that they're admitted. And then regular decision. Many colleges and universities have a process where they essentially all send out every single decision at the same time. So this is often in like April or so. So every single student knows, let's just say April 1st, if they are admitted to the university, if they're denied from the university, or if they're maybe waitlisted to that college or university. So that would be a regular decision date. At our university, we're early action and rolling admission. So just to kind of give an example as to what this means, early action. So for our university, our early action date is November 15th. So if students apply to the university by November 15th, they get priority in knowing their admission decision earlier, because as mentioned, we're rolling. They get priority to complete our university scholarship application, and we'll find out about financial aid sooner. They have priority to apply for on-campus housing, because you have to apply for the university before you can apply for housing or our scholarship application or our honors application. And then they get to do advanced registration sooner, which is our process of placing students in their first semester classes, registering them. So you can see there are a lot of benefits to getting things done early action. So what often schools might need when students are applying. So the kind of documents you want to start thinking about maybe collecting if your student's a senior, junior, just having that in your head, sophomore, freshman, knowing for the future. Transcripts. And often schools have a certain GPA requirement that they're looking for. So they might have a set unweighted GPA. They might have specific classes that they look at. So they might be looking at English, math, natural science, social science, language, electives. It just depends. Every single college is different. So you would have to check with each university independently to see what they need. Schools typically will need a copy of immunization records, which your high school actually has, just like their transcripts. So you often have to send them immunization records. A lot of it's the basics, the MMR 1 and 2, maybe tetanus. Many students have to send in the meningitis vaccination. And then of course, now many schools are requiring the COVID vaccine. Standardized tests is something a student might have to submit. So this would be things like the SAT or the ACT. That being said, many schools over the last year have gone optional with their standardized tests. So they are not requiring students to submit those SATs or those ACTs. We are one of those institutions. So we are now test optional. As mentioned, many schools are. In the state of Nevada, in Washoe County, we know that all of our juniors are going to be taking the ACT, which is great because it means you have those scores. So you potentially can use them for your admission. But if you're not, happy with your school's scores, it's not necessarily going to affect you. Some schools also might require you to submit an essay alongside your application. They might have a specific essay topic. It might be more something like a personal statement explaining you and who you are as a student. Some schools also provide this information on scholarships. So just kind of starting to formulate those things in your head. Building a resume might be something useful for a student to start to do. What have they accomplished? What awards have they been given? What have they done in high school? What have they done outside of high school? What are the clubs and organizations are in? How do they help the family? Why do they want to attend a specific university? Kind of gathering that information. Letters of recommendation. Some schools and some specialized programs within the colleges, like our honors college, ask for letters of recommendation. So it is important for students to form ties with representatives from their high school. Maybe there's a specific field that they're thinking of going into. So really focusing on biology and getting a letter of recommendation from their biology teacher or representatives even outside of their high school. But that's just something to keep in mind, that they are going to want to start to think about how they're going to collect these documents. Some financial information. When you're applying for financial aid, a lot of financial aid information and finances are going to be requested through the FAFSA and maybe from the university itself. I know there is a concurrent session right now going on about financial aid. So for those of you who are here, I think it's going on after this at 6:45 as well. So that's why we are not diving too much into financial aid. And then an application fee. As I mentioned earlier, many universities are going to be charging an application fee. So that's just something to be prepared for as an upfront cost that you'll want to have, that you just want to make sure that you're aware of, that you have to pay. And then asking universities about fee waivers and deferrals as mentioned if needed. So to give you an example of what admission requirements might look like, this is the university's admission requirements. So we are a university that looks for a specific GPA. We don't have essays, we don't have letters of recommendation, we don't have personal statements for our application. So it's not maybe a holistic review, it's focused on academics. So for our new incoming freshmen, it would be a 3.0 weighted academic grade point average. So for us, that means 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of natural science, and 3 years of social science. So something I always like to remind students and parents of is you're applying to college at the very start of your senior year. So you are not having grades from the first semester of senior year. It's basically to the end of the junior year. Some schools will reevaluate after that first semester. We do. So if you need us to, we can reevaluate after the first semester of senior year, but it just depends. So this is, again, specifically what we are looking for as a university, but every school has unique admission requirements. So it would be up to the student to contact or go to the website or talk to representatives from each school they're interested in to see what their admission requirements are. They could change from year to year, but typically it's not too drastic. So it's okay to reach out a little early so they at least have a general idea. And then following up senior year to make sure they haven't changed from what they thought they were. Okay, so again, when you apply to the university, as I mentioned, there's certain documents that have to be submitted. So as an example, for our institution, it's an application for admission. And as I mentioned, we're not part of Common App, so we're a university that has a standalone application. We have a $60 non-refundable application fee. So as mentioned, that's pretty standard, somewhere from maybe $40, maybe a little less if it's a community college, up to $90 typically for an application fee. So that's money to be prepared for. And then a copy of the high school transcript. At this time, with everything, we do accept an unofficial for application, but we need a final official once they graduate. This is something your high school can assist with obtaining, is having those sent to any colleges or universities. Sometimes that even costs like $10 or $15 to send a transcript as well. Then those immunization records we also require at the university. So you can see it's pretty standard. But every school, again, can vary. So not everyone is going to have these exact things. Some might be exactly the same. Some might be slightly different. Some might have more. Some might have less. So preparing for college admissions. So as we chatted about at the beginning, you need to start obtaining information from colleges that you're interested in. So at different colleges and universities, you can go to their website and request information. You can request it's usually just a simple form you complete. You say maybe what you're interested in, what year you are in school, and then we'll send information. So we do that. We have a site on our website. I should have put the link in here, but you can go to our university website and just fill out kind of a general form and we'll send you some information. But this is a great way to start requesting catalogs, asking about, as I mentioned, previous application deadlines and requirements, getting scholarship information, just to start help building up the information you have from the schools you're interested in. And as I mentioned earlier and really stressed, visiting as many colleges as you can. I'm a huge believer in visiting colleges if you're thinking about applying to them. When I did my tour of the university, I was just 100% sold. The feeling of campus that I had when I went on to visit the university on our Nevada bound trip, the beauty of our campus, everything I thought I wanted, at a school the university had. So it's very impactful for me. And I really think for many students, it's the same. Getting that resume together. You want to make sure that you are, getting prepared, having that information, start adding things to it. You don't want to forget freshman year, you were named student of the year in biology. So add that to your resume now. So that way it's being built up by the time your senior year comes. Maybe the school doesn't require a resume, but it would be helpful to have that in front of you when you're filling out supplemental applications. Again, getting those letters of rec, as we mentioned, kind of thinking about essays, some questions you might want to answer, narrowing down the school selection. As we mentioned, you're not going to be applying to probably 50 schools. Students probably aren't even going to apply to 20 schools. So really narrowing down the schools that they want to apply to, because you also are suddenly going to be getting tons of information in the mail, tons of phone calls from schools, tons of emails. So really helping to narrow down so that way you're kind of stopping all that flow of information. Something I recommend is maybe creating a college specific email. So one that you have where all colleges kind of send their information to. And then, that's kind of like your bulk folder. And then if it's something you monitor closely, putting that maybe on your applications. But if not, then having a separate one you do for applications, your main email, because you want to make sure you check that frequently. And then creating some kind of Excel spreadsheet or worksheet to keep track of your progress, to compare those schools, to write down deadlines, contact information, just to have everything in one place. And again, please feel free to post any questions in the chat. I know Maria is posting some information that I'm talking about, which is very helpful. So you can kind of view that there. So researching costs in various aid programs. So again, finances are a very heavy factor when determining the college or university your child will attend. And often, working in financial aid, I know that students sometimes have their heart set and focus on one thing, and the conversation with the parent just doesn't happen, and they don't know how much funds and how much they have to work with to pay for school. So this is probably a good time to have those conversations with your students. And then helping them find information to help reduce those costs. Even if we are at a very affordable institution like the university, we still want to get aid to help us pay for that and help lower the costs. If your child is looking out of state, there's some programs for out of state students. One I always like to mention is called WUI. It's the Western Undergraduate Exchange Program. And this is a reduced tuition program across many of our Western states. So students will pay a lesser rate than that out of state tuition cost if they qualify. Not every school has this, and every school's requirements vary, but something to look into. Different tuition assistance programs, some that are university or state specific. I'll give an example on the next slide of our program, Nevada Guarantee, but there's also things like the Nevada Promise for our community colleges in the state, and other schools might have something for Nevada residents. Other programs I think are worthwhile mentioning if your students are thinking of staying local to Nevada, regardless of the school. We have our former foster youth fee waiver. So if your student was in foster care at or after the age of 14, they can go to any of our colleges or universities in the state of Nevada free of cost. And then a new one that passed is the Native American student fee waiver. So if a student can show proof of membership or proof of descendancy of a federally recognized tribe, all or partially in the state of Nevada, then they can also go to any of our institutions in Nevada free of cost. So these are two great programs, and some that I often find students don't even know about. So finding out about programs like this from the colleges and universities they're looking at, seeing if they have any programs that you think might be specific to you, calling and asking, hey, I am a former foster youth. Do you have any programs that can help me? We would say, yes, we do. And then of course, university scholarships. So every school does scholarships differently. And I know this isn't a scholarship presentation, but I do think it's an important thing to note. Just using the university as an example, we have a scholarship deadline that's separate from our university admissions application. So you apply to the university by February 1st, and then our scholarship application is due February 15th. So it's two things that you have to fill out to be considered for scholarships. Some universities might have it tied into their admissions app, but many, it's a separate process. So you want to make sure if it's twofold, your student isn't missing those deadlines. At our university, our scholarships range from $500 to $8,000 for incoming freshmen. $8,000 is more than the cost of classes at the university. So it covers a lot of the fees, and it just leaves kind of a little bit actually left over on different fees that we have for our students. So it covers a pretty large percentage. And even if your student's getting a $500 scholarship, it still takes a nice chunk out of what they're paying at the university. So making sure they're looking at any university scholarships that are university specific. I often find that the university specific scholarships might be the largest scholarships the students ultimately end up receiving. Millennium Scholarship is another great program. I think in the other financial presentation, they definitely will be talking about that, as well as some of the other presentations this week. So as I mentioned, different tuition discount programs and university specific programs and state programs. So Nevada Guarantee is one that I always just like to use as an example and to mention again, obviously with the university. So this is one that is not statewide, it's university specific. So you might not be aware of this or know about it unless you're actually attending that specific university. So for this one, students can qualify for Nevada Guarantee if they are a Nevada resident, if they're going to be a full-time student, which is what we'd hope all incoming freshmen are. And then we ask that they complete their FAFSA or their internal FAFSA, our institutional methodology form, which is for non-FAFSA eligible students, so undocumented DACA and international students, by February 15th. So in order to qualify for this program, students would have to be eligible for what we call the Pell Grant, which is a federal grant, which is determined through their financial aid applications. Or a really simple way to think of it is if your family income is $50,000 or less. If you qualify based on those criteria, then you'll come to the university totally free of cost. Programs like this, students sometimes don't know about, and they don't think, I talk to students every day who say, I can't afford to go to the university because they don't know that programs like this exist. And they complete their financial aid and I look at it and say, yeah, you can come totally free of cost. So it's very important to be aware of these types of programs because it can really change the scope of the institution that your child might be attending. And you can see this covers classes and fees with money left over to use on things like textbooks or housing. Great programs like this exist all over, but ours might be one of the better ones. Okay. And hopefully I'm going slow enough for our Spanish interpretation as well. But again, please, any questions you have, please post in the chat. And if I need to slow down again, just let me know. So college entrance exams, I touched on this briefly, but these are ones that, the kind of the main two, I suppose, that exist, the SAT and the ACT. Again, many schools across the country have gone test score optional due to the lack of availability due to the COVID pandemic. So you want to make sure, depending on the year, your students are inquiring if they have to take these exams. And a step above that, if they have to take the exams, what are the scores for? The higher the score, the better the scholarship, the better the chance of getting admitted, class placement, or if it's something that's, yeah, we require it, but we don't really need a specific score because, this is money to pay for these exams, time that your students are giving up on their Saturdays to take the exam, preparing for the exams, etc. For the state of Nevada, we have a statewide ACT that all juniors take. So your students will be taking this exam their junior year. If they missed it, then they retake it their senior year. And when they complete this, they'll indicate any schools that they want it sent to as well. So they can automatically have it sent to like our institution. So we're optional. So we can use it for class placement. We can use it for admission, but we don't require it. One I always like to mention is the PSAT. So still in the state of Nevada, we have all students take what's called the PSAT, which is the pre-SAT. They take this their sophomore year, and then they'll take it again their junior year. One of the big things with this, I guess, is good preparation if they want to take the SAT, but it can qualify them as a national merit, which is essentially the top 1% of students that take the exam, the highest 1% of scores. And if they qualify as a national merit finalist, it can mean many things, but one of the big ones that parents want to hear is very large scholarships. So a student who qualifies as a national merit would get a $16,000 scholarship at the university, which is well over the cost of classes and fees. So that's extra money they can use as a refund or living on campus or personal expenses, laptops, studying abroad, all that stuff. Sorry, I'm talking too fast again. for interpretation. I'm going to try to slow down. I get so excited when I talk about college and the university. Okay. So what to do in high school, what you want to think about preparing for now, depending on what grade your child is in. One thing we highly recommend is taking AP classes. So AP classes are those advanced placement classes where if a student passes that test at the end of the year, they can receive potentially college credit, depending on the university that they're attending. We find, and it's nationally found, that students who take AP classes do better in college. They're better prepared in college. So if your student is given the option to take AP courses and they feel they are ready for AP courses, we highly recommend that they take them while they're in high school. Even if they don't end up passing the exam, they are better prepared for the classes that they're taking once they get to college. There's a large variety of AP classes that are offered across Washoe County and at, I believe most, maybe all, I'm not sure if every single one, but most high schools across Washoe County. So we really do encourage you to look into that for your children. If it's in math, if it's in English, if it's in, art, if it's in geography, there's several different AP class offerings. You can take several in one year. Some of them even are offered as early. I've seen a very few offered as freshmen, but then sophomore, there's some offerings to have. So sometimes you might do one or so sophomore year, maybe a couple more junior year, and maybe the most your senior year. But we really recommend looking into those advanced placement classes. Taking dual credits is another great option if it's offered. So dual credit would be taking a class at the high school level, but you're also essentially the class is being taught by a college or university. So there's a lot of classes like math classes and English classes in the county that are maybe at their high school, but they're taught by TMCC, or their English teachers trained to teach that class and the material from TMCC. So they get credit. So when they apply to the university, they can actually have that class transferred over to the university to receive college credit. This is a great option to help students get ahead. Most of these are going to be transferable to really any college or university they're attending. I mean, they want to ask specifically. The one thing I do like to mention with these is, unlike the AP classes where if they don't pass the test, it's okay. They are not getting the credit for it. It's not affecting them. When they are taking dual credit, you want to make sure that they're serious about those classes, because if they don't do well, they have to still transfer those grades over to the university or college that they're interested in. They have to send those transcripts. So it will potentially impact them. So that could affect, their GPA and different elements of what it means when you transfer classes over, essentially. So you want to make sure that they're very motivated in these classes. And then getting involved. Maybe you have a student who is hesitant about joining a club at their high school, getting involved with student council, trying to at least find something that engages them in their high school, whether that be joining, a music program or, an athletic sport or a club or organization, finding something that interests them so they have something to reference on their applications or their scholarship applications of things that they're doing now to help them, for the future, things that they find that they enjoy or know that are helping other people. Maybe they're volunteering. That's a great thing for your children to start to do. Maybe they want to go to medical school. So you have them shadow a doctor, or, dental school, shadow a dentist, volunteer at the library, the hospital, etc. Finding ways for them to have something beyond just who they are as a GPA and potentially a test score. Whether that's, again, in high school or in the community. And then, as simple as it sounds, keeping those grades up. As grades as early as freshman year are just as important as junior year. So we want to make sure that we are seeing steady grades, especially in those core classes. We talked about our admission requirements. It's pretty cut and dry. So we really want to see those high, those A's and B's while they're in high school. If they had a tough year, working in admissions, I think a lot of students had a tough year last year, and maybe something else happened previously. That's okay. reach out to the college and university if they feel like they're not there. I know a lot of universities are having a bit more compassion just because of the struggles that many students had last year, particularly with online learning and the pandemic and whatnot. But moving forward, making sure we keep those grades as high as we can to make sure that we are a competitive student. Okay. That concludes the presentation. I did want to leave about 10 minutes for any questions that you might have. Here's our specific contact information for the university. If you want to reach out to me directly, I'm happy to provide my information in the chat as well. But again, I'm here with any questions that you have right now, if there are any, and you can just post those in the chat. And I'll be sure to, if they're in Spanish, I think maybe someone else can help interpret them for me. And then we'll have those interpreted in Spanish as well. Any questions?
I know there was one on the chat, Elizabeth, about, I think this is more directed to just one student, but I think it's still important. It's about the COVID affecting the GPA of a student, but the ACT is in the 99th percentile. So the question is, can my child get in based on the ACT alone?
Yes, so that's a great question. So the question was about COVID affecting GPA, but maybe the student having a high, test score. Honestly, I would say contact each university individually. At our university, we will admit you off of GPA or ACT or SAT. So if you have a strong ACT, but maybe not as high GPA, we can still admit you. And as I mentioned, a lot of universities are having a little more flexibility than they might have in the past due to the pandemic. So there are still ways to get admitted. So at our university, it's the 3.0 weighted academic GPA or a 22 or higher on the ACT. So as long as they have one of those, they'll still get admitted. And I see some other questions that are coming into the chat as well. So what about students with learning disabilities? Again, that is going to be on a university to university decision as well. At our university, we have what's called the Disability Resource Center, and they start working with students as soon as they apply, but they'll even talk to prospective students as well. So if your student has an IEP or any special consideration that they need, I highly recommend reaching out to the Disability Resource Center. We even have programs for students who might have a higher level disability and wouldn't be necessarily admissible to the university as an incoming freshman. You just want to make sure that you get in touch with the Disability Resource Center. I don't think this is something unique to our university. I think universities across the country have something like this, I do believe. So you would just want to contact admissions and then the DRC, Disability Resource Center, at each of the universities that your child is thinking of. But I know many universities, including ours, are very accommodating. So what are some reputable college comparison sites? I mentioned Forbes, US World and News Reports. Honestly, there's a lot that are out there. For the most part, they're all pretty legitimate, those top ones that you see when you do a college search. I know actually on the Washoe County School District website, they have a lot of resources to help you find different colleges and universities. So I think kind of it also depends on what your child's looking for. Like if they're interested in fine arts, there's some that are specific to fine arts and narrowing down the college search that way. Someone asked, when is the ACT given? So the ACT typically is offered nearly every month. It's had a lot of cancellations due to the pandemic. That was one of the biggest issues that students were facing, is they were being offered and then they were being canceled, plus limited availability, plus only a certain number of students could register. For juniors, they take the ACT statewide in the spring, usually sometime in February. If your student didn't take it junior and they're a senior, they would have them do a retake. The ACT is now required for graduation in the state. So at some point they will take it in high school, but if they want to retake it or take the SAT, that would be an independent sign up. And there will be testing locations around the county. So several different options. No problem. And as Maria mentioned, please make sure to provide feedback. If there's things that you want to know for next year or that you have for us, fill that out. And Maria, if there's anything you want to add, please hop in too.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was a great presentation. It's very informative for families and students to know about what's offered at the university, and also if they want to go outside, what is important for them to start thinking about. So I have placed here on the screen a couple of QR codes. They're also the same as the links I put on the chat. Is for us to find out what are some of the changes you would like to see for future presentations. We really value your feedback. I also want to remind you that we have a second set of presentations this evening. So starting at 6:30, we'll end at 6:30, and then we'll be back at 6:45 with more topics. And you can find the links on the Washoe County School District website. I also place the links on the chat, and I can replace them again. Just so you know, there's a financial aid presentation going on, as Elizabeth mentioned, this night, and I feel that that's very valuable as well. And also, starting tomorrow, Tuesday and Wednesday, we're gonna have more workshops for you. We're about 4 workshops each day, so please feel free to check it out. And if you have any questions, you can also call us at our office, 775-789-4685. And also I see that Elizabeth put her information on the chat, so make sure you check the chat for more information. But that's all I have, Elizabeth.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. And again, if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll stick around here until 6:30 in case anyone else has any questions. I'll just hang out.
Thank you for coming, and we hope to see you in another presentation. That's all we have for you tonight.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Do you have a question for us?
Yes, I do. Our
Yeah, go
daughter's
ahead.
a senior at Incline High School, and she'll have 4 years of ROTC. And I'm wondering if the admissions counselor could talk about anything to do with ROTC moving forward in college.
Yeah, that's a great question. So with ROTC, I guess one of the things, it depends on if the college or university obviously has ROTC programs, military science programs,
Yes.
and then what field they want to go into. Like we have Army ROTC at the university, but that's the only ROTC program we have. So
Okay.
if that is a heavy consideration for your student, that is going to be a very specific search essentially for them. You know, if they're interested in Army ROTC or Air Force or Navy, et cetera, to find the specific ones that are offered at whichever colleges do have them. In many of the programs, they have ROTC throughout, or kind of specialized programs 2 years. Some of them help lead them into an officer status once they graduate. Some of them have them join and then actually sign into the military. So they would become active duty in the military upon graduation. But it's a great thing to look into, as I'm sure you and your student know, for kind of military benefits, paying back education and whatnot. At the university, we have, like I said, Army ROTC, and we have a recruiter in that program who's really wonderful. And he will talk to any prospective student about those programs and answer even general questions that you have as well.
Okay, thank you. Our student would like to study fire science, and I did go on your website, and I don't know if it's still open or not, but I believe you have at one time you had a 426 acre fire science academy in Carlin, Nevada. And I don't know if that's still open or not.
So I do know what you're referring to. And I know we did have something. I'm not honestly too familiar with the program.
Okay.
And how it exists at this point. Send me an email and I'll make sure to do some research in terms of what programs we do have. I know within our ecology program and our natural resources program, we do some fire science research, but I'm not sure the capacity. I know we do have a lot of that large land still, but I just don't know to the extent. So send me an email and I can get that.
I will do so. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Thank you all so much, everyone, for being here today. I'm going to hop off so we can get everything moving for the next
Thank you.
session.